Hey. Hi, I'm human. I need to change into my good times underwear. Daddy? This is what fish oil feels like. We will all drink, baby, drink. A thought goes out to you. I think I'm gonna go watch Friends. I don't have a home, Pikachu. Hey Baron, how's the air up there? I shouldn't have eaten all these chews. I love you very much. I love you very much. Thick and cool.
Fruit salad. Yummy, yummy. Fruit salad.
Pretty funny stuff there, I do think. So I guess I'm having problems with my buttons again today. I thought I had this situation fixed. I'm here. I will eventually pull myself up. I hope you guys all had a good morning today. There I am. Oh man, it's so funny. I tested before the show started. All my buttons worked fine. I don't know why that happened, so I apologize. But good morning. I am Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. Donald Trump shared that. I don't know what it is. He loves those lip syncing type videos, even the silly ones. And if you're on any of his pages, you'll see that he shares them pretty often. And he must get a kick out of those for some reason. Sometimes I think they're funny and sometimes they're a little bit silly. But anyway, so much to talk about today. Good morning, Linda. I have a lot of videos to play today, so I hope all my little buttons work correctly. In a few minutes, I might kind of, while I'm showing something, might kind of take it down and take a look because I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. For some reason, some mornings my button just haven't been working. Good morning, Allison. Good morning, Dottie from North Carolina. Lots to talk about today. Good morning, Tammy, Jerry Hoover. All the things we wanted to happen are happening. Have you noticed everything's just falling in line? Good morning, Sandy. And thank you for joining us this morning. There's so much going on. It's kind of funny because we just talked yesterday about what? Abolishing the IRS. And then, of course, Donald Trump makes a speech about abolishing the IRS. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the end. Can you imagine the end of income tax? I almost feel like I'm dreaming. Like, how is this all real? But it is real. And we're going to talk about abolishing, once again, the IRS, federal taxes, income taxes, because I really do think, and we'll talk about it more then, that making Americans wealthier, giving us more of the money we work so hard for, that is really key to making our country stable. So I think these are really important changes. Trump, of course, firing an awful lot of people. There's an awful lot of people losing their jobs right now, as they should. We're going to talk about all the people who have been, being on the chopping block. And today, I don't know how you feel about this. This is going to be pretty controversial for a lot of people today. But today, it is expected that Donald Trump will talk about two directives in the military banning trans folks from the military and ending all DEI diversity type initiatives in the United States military. Good morning, Jay. And Jay says, Illinois will just raise our state taxes. In Illinois, that's true. That is true. And good morning, Katrina. So there's a lot going on with that. I want to dive into these JFK files because I don't know if you guys know what Operation Northwoods is. We're going to talk about what Operation Northwoods is, and did that have anything to do with the JFK assassination? Some people say yes, some people say no. Of course, I think most people think it did. For whatever reason, though, JFK's family seems to think that that's not the case at all, that it was just this tragic situation where he was assassinated by this random person. And I don't think most other people believe it. And Jay said he signed the executive orders last night. He did. And Trump continues to sign executive orders. And so we're going to jump into that. Of course, Jay talking about transgender rights in the military, which is pretty much none at this point. And then, some of the things about Denmark, talking about sending military in to protect Greenland. firing, our Border Patrol agents are being fired upon out on the southern border. That's not unusual. That's been happening for a long time, but I think we can expect more of that to happen. And we saw some of that yesterday. Still, a lot in the news about, about deportations and what's taking place with the deportations, how many. We've got some updated numbers on deportations, and I'll tell you, they're moving quickly, very quickly. I don't know how many criminals we have in this country who are here illegally, but man, these numbers are growing rapidly. And in the ICE, actually, they have an X page where if you go onto X and you follow the ICE and immigration page, you can see their daily numbers, how many people each day they deport and how many people they come across, they make contact with, but do not deport. And that's pretty interesting. Mr. Parnell says executive orders are short term, and without legislation, they really are just feeding the emotional state of the people. True. However, we also have to remember that right now Congress is in our favor. And I do think a good portion of these executive orders, if not all of them, will end up becoming a true reality. And let's go back to the Biden term. All of Biden's executive orders, there might have been one or two that were rejected, but by and large, Biden's executive orders all stood. And I think the same thing is going to happen with Donald Trump. Things are going good on our side right now. Let's hope it stays that way. Robert says, let's take a page from Castro and send our criminals with the deported. We should do that. Why don't we do what Venezuela does or some of these other countries where we open our prisons, empty our prisons, and send them out to other countries? They do it to us all the time. They send their worst. I mean, the reason why our crime rate is so high is partially, obviously, we have our own criminals, our own bad apples, but we also have we're the cesspool where all of the other countries send all of their worst and most violent people. They send them all here to the United States because they know our borders are unprotected. And, I read yesterday, I don't have exact numbers, but I did read that down along our southern border, that illegal border crossings are pretty much none right now. They're really not seeing anyone coming across because, I'm sure there's still some people sneaking across, but by and large, it's pretty much trickled down to nothing because people know as soon as they come over, they're going to be deported. And, I remember constitutionally back in the day, what we used to do, when you cross the southern border or the northern border illegally, you have so many feet to go. I don't know if it's feet or yards. I think it's like 150 feet, something along those lines, where if you cross the border and you're within that 150 feet, you are automatically turned away and taken back across the border. But if you make it past that point and you make it over that however many feet or yards, then you are entitled under the Constitution an asylum hearing. Now, of course, right now we're not doing any of those things. If they catch you coming across our southern border, it doesn't matter how many feet you've made it into this country, you are turned around and back you go. So I think a lot of people are really realizing, hey, Donald Trump means business. And people in these other countries, they know Donald Trump means business. And that's exactly why so many came in while they could. And now we've got a lot of work ahead of us to try to get these people to turn around. Good morning, Sharon. And good morning, Karen and Elizabeth. And Mr. Parnell says exile was floated by Trump. I believe yesterday, his thought process. Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by exile. You mean exiling himself? I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure what you mean. But I think there's a lot of different things going on. Trump obviously getting back at those. I don't, in his first term, he really took it easy on people. I think one of the things I always thought was going to happen is I was just waiting for the Clintons to be thrown in prison. I really was. I really thought something was going to happen, particularly to Hillary Clinton and all of the things she's done to our ranchers and the uranium that was sold to Russia. I fully expected her to end up in Guantanamo, but it didn't happen. Trump did not do anything, and he drained the swamp. He didn't drain it well enough. And I think that he learned his lesson. So this time around, he is taking action. It's unprecedented. The firings, the outing of different people who are involved in different types of criminal activity. It is pretty wild. And exile criminals. Yeah, it'd be nice to exile criminals. I hope that we take all of our criminals. And I used to say, well, let's find like an island somewhere and send all of our criminals to the island. But then we became the island where all the other countries sent their criminals to us. We became that island. And so now we've got a lot of work to do. And it's just shocking to me that people don't get it. Did you guys see that video of Selena Gomez bawling her little eyes out over it? I'm going to play that here in just a couple minutes, because this is how so many people feel. And they don't understand we're not attacking Latino and Hispanic people. That's not what this is about. As a matter of fact, it's not about that at all. China just stated that, he and Donald Trump, President Xi, worked out an arrangement to deport all of China's illegals. There's a lot of people in our country who are here illegally from China, between just entering illegally and overstaying, a visa type situation. And they are being sent back. It's not just about Hispanics and Latinos. We are not attacking the brown people. That's just not what this is about. This is about sending all people who have entered our country illegally back to where they originated from. It doesn't matter if they're white, if they're black, if they're brown. It does not make a difference whatsoever. People are being sent back to Ukraine. Trump has ended the refugee program with Ukraine, and we are no longer accepting Ukrainian refugees. And a lot of the refugees that are here from Ukraine are going to be sent back. And guess what? They are white people. If you're here from Russia, guess what? You're white, and you're also going back. If you're here illegally, China, Asians, if you're here illegally, you're going back. It's not about brown people. It's just not about brown people. But they would like us to believe that it's about brown people. Because if it's about brown people, then guess what? They can call us all racist. They can try to fight it, but it's not about that. It is just simply not about that. It is about taking our people who are here in our country, people who are here illegally. They crossed our border illegally. That is a crime in this country. It's a crime under our Constitution to enter this country illegally. I don't know if I'm telling you guys things you already know. Most other countries, you can't cross the border illegally. We can't even go into Mexico illegally, can we? If we snuck across the Mexican border, we're going to end up in a Mexican prison, aren't we? With your treatment a lot harsher than here in the United States. But no one wants to talk about that. Allison says, send them to Epstein Island. Not a bad idea. Allison J says, the drama queen. Baffles me how they how they are against deporting criminals. Jay, it baffles me too. Abe says, the libs like Gomez are still believing everything MSM spews. And that's the key right there, Abe, is that, like I said yesterday, mainstream news, they're not telling people the truth. They're just not telling people the truth. If they told people outwardly, hey, you need to self-deport. And if you don't self-deport, if we find you, if we pick you up in a raid, if we come across you in a traffic stop, you're not going to be able to enter this country for 20 years. You will not be granted access to the United States. People would be self-deporting in a far higher level than what they already are. But mainstream media, they're not telling you that. They're not telling you that hey, if you actually self-deport, you can apply for asylum, and we will fast track that process once we get everything settled. They're not explaining that ICE right now is only going after the most dangerous criminals. And, I have a video. I don't know if I saved the video or not. And I don't even know with my buttons if I can even play the darn video. But I'm having all kinds of problems again today with my buttons. I didn't save it either way. But, oh, yeah, I did. Yeah, they did. And there's two guys that ICE came across. And these two men are from Thailand. And they are here to, guess what? Purchase. I'm trying to put this lightly. They're here to purchase children. How about that? They want services with children. Good morning, Rob. And let's see here. Patrina, same way misinformation is spread. Movie stars and singers get the most leftist news and react. That's exactly right. And we're going to play her video. She's since deleted it, but it's it's pretty obvious that she is being fed liberal, ridiculous news for her to feel that she does. Because what she should be saying is, you know what? Thank you, Donald Trump, for deporting and going after our most violent criminals in this country, MS-13 gang members, Tren de Aragua gang members, people who have raped and murdered children or other innocent people, but traffickers. No, but instead, no, we're attacking her people. So first of all, again, you're going to bear with me with my
What's your
buttons
name?
here this morning. This is a video of two Thailand men who are here to purchase
Where you
children.
from?
Where I was born or where I'm from?
Where you born?
Thailand.
You been deported before from the United States?
No.
Never been deported?
But I've been in the system before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What have you been charged with
Charged for it.
before?
I'm not gonna say that. I'm gonna talk about lawyer.
Yeah. Are you a citizen?
My mom's a citizen.
Your mother's a citizen?
Yes.
But you're not?
Nope.
But you've never been deported before?
You Dr. Phil. You look like Dr. Phil.
Yeah? How do you know me?
No, I seen Dr. Phil, on TV.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is an example of sanctuary cities, right? We got an illegal alien convicted of sex crimes involving children. And he's walking the streets of Chicago. Again, the downfall, the problem with the sanctuary city, that people like us walking the street rather than local law enforcement working with federal agents. This is what we're dealing with. Yeah. You've been charged with sex crimes with children?
Not really.
Not really? And never been deported?
Nope.
Huh. Let's take them in and process them, lock them up.
Got it, sir. All right. Can you get a transport vehicle? Working on it. Okay.
Okay, well, I think that speaks for itself. Tom Homan, of course, with Dr. Phil. Now, I'm going to put this out there very bluntly. I can't stand Dr. Phil. I absolutely cannot stand the sight of that man. And I really wish that Tom Homan wasn't marching around Chicago with Dr. Phil, who, let me remind you, back when Trump was campaigning, shortly before the election, that Dr. Phil, I know I'm going off on a side note here, Dr. Phil had endorsed Donald Trump, if you remember that. Well, then all of a sudden, Dr. Phil got upset because he wanted to meet with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump just didn't have time. And so therefore, he spoke out against Donald Trump, and he said, you know what? I really wanted to endorse, what's her name? Kamala Harris. I contacted her office, I think he said like 25 times, and she never got back to Dr. Phil. So Dr. Phil said, well, to show Kamala Harris that if she doesn't call me back, if she doesn't get back to me, then I'm going to endorse, her opponent, Donald Trump. Man, I cannot stand that guy, cannot stand him. And I hate to even show a video with him, but it was very important to show these are the people walking our streets. These two guys from Thailand, here they are in the United States. Oh, the one guy said his mother is a citizen here. He has been already convicted of crimes against children, but yet he's illegal. He's here in our country. He's out walking the streets of Chicago completely unimpeded, left to go out and guess what? Harm more children. So people like this, how can you cry and say that we need to protect these people? I don't understand it. Nothing can I understand. And then let's look at Selena here and how she feels about this. Well, we're going to try to look at Selena. My buttons aren't quick, but it will eventually go. I don't know why my buttons are doing this.
I just say that I'm so sorry. All my people are getting attacked. The children. I don't understand. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't. I don't know what.
Okay, so she's crying, talking about the children. Oh, the poor children that are being deported. And the poor children. You mean the 70 to 80,000 children that we found because we're out trying to deport illegals in this country who have committed violent crimes? Why isn't she crying for the children that these people are harming? That's what I don't understand. It confuses me every single time. That poor Selena here, she's so upset because we're attacking her people. We're harming the children, but yet she doesn't want to say, okay, well, Donald Trump, thank you. Thank you for deporting these violent criminals that are harming our children. How about that? It just drives me absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Oh, it just makes me mad. Good morning, Fred. Good morning, Glesna. And Alan says we need to protect our children from these criminals. Exactly. Abe says, can't stand seeing libs like Gomez with $1 billion say she can't do anything. And yes, Galesna, they are sex traffickers. And Robert says, yes, what a child. Petrino says, always the sympathizing, the people with make me sick with criminals, rapists and violent offenders. How can anyone sympathize with rapists and violent offenders, criminals, child sex abusers, pedophiles? Those are the people that are being deported right now. Yes, there are some other people mixed in with them, because if you're harboring and abetting someone who is a violent criminal and you are also here illegally, yes, they're going to take you also. And yes, if you are an employer and you're employing violent criminals that are also illegal and they come into your place of employment and they see other people who are there illegal, yes, they are taking them also, unless they can prove, like I said yesterday, that they have been attempting to become citizens for the past 2 years. Oh, it makes me so mad. Now, she did later delete that video. I think that was, I don't know if it was on TikTok or where it was. I haven't watched the whole thing because I can't stand to see it. I would like to see her and a lot of other people shed tears for the children and the women and even the men who've been abused by these people. I mean, I'm not even going to get into it. We talked about it so much yesterday, and it's so infuriating to me that this is going on, that these people are so upset and shedding all of these tears over these criminals who are leaving our country. And if these criminals have children that also have to leave with them, it's highly unfortunate for those children. But you know what? Now these criminals, they're going to be someone else's problem, not our problem. They're not our problem. And I'm not losing and shedding one single tear over somebody who has raped a child being sent out of our country. People who are dangerous gang members who lead to the deaths of other individuals, of Americans, through not only their gang activity, but through their drug trafficking. I'm not shedding one single tear over it. Good morning, Jason. And I do hope, as I said yesterday, I'm not going to go into this story. We talked a lot about deportations yesterday. The only thing that I can hope is as we dwindle things down, we get all of the violent criminals out of our country. I do hope then we can start a fast track process for those people who've lived in our country, who have been model citizens, well, not necessarily citizens of the United States, but have been productive in our society, who have lent to our culture. I hope we find a fast track process for those people, for them to be here legally. But if you've committed a crime and you're here illegally, you have to go. End of story. That's all there is to it. Jay says, no tears over 350,000 missing kids. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? So, we'll see how things go as we make our way through the phases of deportation. And again, I wish that people would spread the message of self-deportation, because even if you're a really good person and you're here in this country and you are approached by ICE, if you can't again prove that you have been actively seeking citizenship consistently for 2 years, and I don't mean prove in a court of law, I mean prove that day when they see you. If they came into my house right now, I would have to have documents with me or be able to show them that, yes, I've been actively trying to become a citizen for the past 2 years. Then they would leave me here. They would leave me alone. But if I couldn't show that, then they're going to deport me. And then I'm going to have to apply for asylum legally, apply for citizenship legally, and then they will hear my case that I have been actively trying. So I hope people will get the message that if you are here and you're illegal, that you have all of your documentation with you that shows that you have been actively trying to become a citizen for the past 2 years. Because if you have that documentation with you, you will not be deported. If you look at ICE numbers, I believe yesterday's numbers, when at the end of the day yesterday, was around 7,500 total deportations since Donald Trump created the executive order, since he declared an emergency on the southern border. And almost half that same number are people that were approached by ICE and other, members of the task force who were here illegally, but they allowed them to stay because they had the proper documentation to show that they were attempting to receive their citizenship. So it's not a situation where every single person is deported. They are certainly come across a lot of people. I think yesterday the numbers was about, I can't really remember, maybe 1,500 actual successful deportees and about 500 people they approached and then allowed them to stay because they had the proper paperwork showing that they were working on citizenship. So please keep that in mind. Elizabeth, I'm still processing what you said about Dr. Phil. I was unaware. I am very surprised by his behavior. Elizabeth, I talked about that on a show, back when all this was going on, because I seriously, I cannot stand Dr. Phil after knowing what he did, and I'll post something about that, Elizabeth, maybe on social media later so you can see it. It's old news, it's not relevant really so much now, but Dr. Phil he is not one of us. That man is not one of us. He made it very clear. And it was kind of funny at the time when Dr. Phil said that he was upset with Donald Trump because I don't remember what Dr. Phil wanted to do. If he wanted to speak at one of the rallies, there was something he wanted to do that Donald Trump did not ask him to do. And so he spoke out and again said, well, really, I favor Kamala Harris. He said he reached out to her like 25 times and Kamala Harris's team never got back to him because he wanted to publicly endorse her. And he said, okay, well, Kamala Harris, if you don't care enough about me to reach back out to me, then screw you. I'm going to go over here to your opponent and I'm going to endorse him. But he withdrew his endorsement of Donald Trump right before the election. And what's so crazy about that is he actually thought people cared. He actually thinks he's so relevant that people actually care. And he should understand that obviously Kamala Harris's team wasn't contacting him because they don't care. They don't care about his endorsement. Donald Trump didn't ask him to speak at rallies or be involved in the campaign because he's not relevant. No one cares about you, Dr. Phil. Sorry. Oh, it's so frustrating. And then to see him out there with Tom Homan just frustrates me to no end. Allison said he wanted to speak at the DNC first. Yeah. And thank you, Allison, because I'm like, I know there's more to it than what I could recall. And yeah, and they didn't want him to speak at the DNC because he doesn't matter. Dr. Phil, you don't matter. Sorry, but you just don't matter. So some of the things I wanted to get into today, there's a lot to talk about. Tuberculosis, it's kind of crazy, but tuberculosis is making a comeback. And it's really wild to me that right here in Kansas, that's not far from where many of us are. I am hearing, and I haven't heard the exact number of cases. It may be a lot of cases, it may not be a lot of cases, but it's enough cases to break a record that they said as long as we have been keeping track of tuberculosis cases in recorded history, we have broken that record in the state of Kansas. So tuberculosis on the rise. We have this what is it? MPV, I don't know, some kind of HMPV virus, of course, circulating. We're still dealing with avian flu. A lot more talk now about those avian flu vaccinations, not for your pets, but for you. Not here, not going to happen. Definitely not happening for me. And there's so much crazy talk now about all of these different viruses spreading around. And I keep thinking back to all of those different vials that are missing from all the different biolabs. And so nothing should surprise you moving forward. If you start hearing about all of these different people being caught with these different weird viruses, don't be surprised at all. And, that's something I don't think we can really combat, is the release of viral pathogens. And I think as Donald Trump continues to make these executive orders, as his policies continue, we're at an increased threat every day. We'll talk, of course, to Colonel Joe Adams with the Washington Guard tomorrow and talk about the ongoing threat against Americans between the cartel and foreign operatives, against terrorists, all of these people who know If they don't act now, they will maybe potentially never be able to act because they're in our country now. We're looking for them. And soon they will be expelled from our country. If they don't commit their acts of terror now, then again, they may never be able to. So I personally see and hope I'm wrong an increase of different types of attacks against Americans from all walks of life, unfortunately. And a lot of different probably things that are going to be taking place, over the next several months. I'm not saying today, I'm not saying tomorrow. Things with this deportation, this is just the very beginning. They are looking to hire hundreds of border patrol officers, hundreds of ICE officers. They're really ramping up, and hiring these people so that they can increase the number of raids they can conduct. So I keep hearing somewhere between June, July, August is when we're going to see the largest numbers of deportation. So we've got a little ways to go on that. And Sandy says, Dr. Oz was another one who leaned with the COVID craziness. He's since sort of backtracked into our natural health. You know why, Sandy, he's backtracked is because he knows that the American people were not going to deal with it. And he wants to go where the money goes. He wants to go where the population, where he thinks the majority is going to watch him, to give him money. I mean, I'm not going to talk about anymore. I can't stand that guy. And I hope to never see his face again. And I wish I could write a letter to Tom Homan and said, please leave Dr. Phil at home. Why is this guy? He reminds me of Geraldo Rivera. Remember that when Geraldo was running around everywhere, involved in absolutely everything. And I couldn't stand to hear anything that man said, just trying to be relevant in every corner. And it just drove me insane. Alice says the cartel are setting up landmines along the border, and they shot at Border Patrol agents yesterday. Yeah, that was I think it was in Fronton, Texas, I believe. And I have heard these things about setting up landmines. I've heard they're booby trapping tunnels. There's a lot of things going on because we're at war with the cartels. It's not discussed in that way, but we are absolutely at war with the cartels. Donald Trump has officially labeled them as a terror organization. We are absolutely at war with the cartels. And how far will that war with the cartels go? I don't know. I don't know. Will we see boots on the ground in Mexico going after the cartels? Very possibly. Will we see, I think we're more likely to see drone attacks and AI being used against cartels more than we are boots on the ground, but there's going to be a lot going on. And as they continue to push into our country and they continue to wage war on our Border Patrol, ICE agents, and other American law enforcement, we're going to be stepping up our retaliation against the cartels. So expect that to happen. I don't know how ugly it's going to get. Colonel Joe Adams would be better to be able to tell us something along those lines. But there are hundreds of thousands of cartel members, hundreds of thousands. There are hundreds of thousands of terrorists from various countries around the world. And we are truly outnumbered when it comes to the bad guys. There are more bad guys than good guys, quite honestly, that are trying to attack us. And that's something to keep in mind. If they really were able to unite, I think Colonel Joe Adams even stated this. If all of the cartels united, instead of fighting each other, if they all united against us, we would be in big trouble. We would be in really big trouble. And who's to say that's not going to happen? We are threatening their livelihood. The cartels, they make billions of dollars. It used to be billions of dollars a week. I wouldn't be surprised if it's billions of dollars a day right now. And so therefore, Donald Trump's policies affect their money. It affects what they're bringing in, their way of life, how they do things. And that there are some folks high up in the chain in these cartels who do not like being considered a terrorist. There's a lot of people who are very angry with Donald Trump and with a lot of us Americans, and we're deporting all of these dangerous criminals. And what do you think these dangerous criminals are going to do when we deport them? They're going to join the gangs and the cartels to fight against the United States. So we're going to see what happens. I think that if the cartels do rise up in some type of large-scale attack against Americans, I think we will obliterate them. I don't think there will be anything left. Remember when Donald Trump drop that MOAB over in Afghanistan, it'll happen. I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see things escalate, but do not put it past Donald Trump. Don't put it past him. You see what he's doing. As a matter of fact, there's so many things that are going down right now with Donald Trump. He's going to address Congress March the 4th, and that's going to be an important day because March the 4th in 1789, that was the very first time, the very first meeting of Congress after the new Constitution. So I think it's very befitting that Donald Trump meets with Congress for the first time in his presidency on March the 4th. I think that's pretty interesting. So we'll see how that meeting goes. I can't wait to see that video. But in the meantime, there's a lot that happened just between yesterday, and today. And that is Donald Trump going after all of those who prosecuted him. He said all of those who came after him, who committed lawfare against him, he is going after them. They're all being fired. He's going after anyone that prosecuted the J6ers. And we're going to talk also about Matthew Huttle here in a couple of minutes. Of course, the J6er that was killed in Hobart, Indiana, which is just a horrific situation to talk about. And all of the J6ers, some of them being rearrested on other charges, which I told you that was probably going to happen last week. And it is actually coming to fruition now. So we'll see more about that also. But yeah, Donald Trump, he learned his lesson. He learned his lesson in his first term. He's draining the swamp even further than he did before. He didn't get rid of enough people in his first term. He allowed some of these backstabbers to remain, and he put his good faith in them that maybe they learned a lesson because he didn't prosecute them. Now he realizes that, these people, they weaponized the DOJ against him. They weaponized our government against him. They weaponized our intelligence agencies against him, and they're all gone. They're leaving. Trump is getting rid of all of them. All of them. As a matter of fact, anyone who does not uphold his executive orders, gone. Did you see he put on administrative leave several members of USAID? And if you know what USAID is, they are the folks that control the money. And quite honestly, they're probably one of the most corrupt branches in our entire government. People never talk about them. And what they do is let's say that we, the government, we say, okay, we want X number of millions of dollars to go to Indonesia, X amount of money to go to Ukraine, or these are the people who send the money. They're in control of the money. We give USAID the money, they send it to these different countries. And really what happens is they end up funding a lot of this money to the CIA. They control the CIA's monetary flow. They are the people who end up, seriously, laundering the money that we send. I'm trying to figure out how to state this in a good way. But, all of the money that we send to Ukraine that ends up in the pockets of Zelensky or ISIS or the cartels, that all comes back to USAID because they determine where this money goes. And Donald Trump told them, he wrote an executive order that said, we're stopping all funding to other countries. All aid is completely stopped. End of story. We will sort it all out later, figure out who really deserves this money. But in the meantime, we're not sending a dollar to anyone. Well, guess what? Well, USAID took it upon themselves to continue sending aid to different countries. They refuse to listen to Donald Trump's executive order. So guess what? They're all on administrative leave. And that will probably potentially be another department that is broken up, rebranded with some good folks who actually send the money where the money needs to go, not to the CIA, not to the Biden crime family, not to Zelensky. So we'll see it. And you guys probably think I'm talking a foreign language. Most people don't even talk about USAID, but it's going to be in the news a little bit more. And Allison says, Hope Hegseth does a complete audit of the Pentagon. Something tells me they will. Something tells me they will. I think there's going to be a lot of audits all around. And Elizabeth, there was something on social media last year revealing through night vision equipment, unidentified soldiers in the mountains of Arizona. That wouldn't surprise me at all, Elizabeth, because there's so much that goes on in Arizona and New Mexico. And I think things that would frighten most people. And I think it is also the reason why a lot of people in Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico ranchers and so on who are in those regions are at this heightened state of alert. They have to carry their weapons around with them all the time because the cartels and other folks have infiltrated our southern border. They know they're in those regions. They control some of the highways, they control some of the towns, as crazy as that sounds. And I can't get into detail because I can't talk about, some of the work that I do, but I know that there's a community in Texas along the border. And I've got to be very careful what I say here. And it's so bad. It's so bad that their government has been taken over and ran by the cartels. This is a city in America, okay, in America, in Texas. And the entire county is ran by the cartels, not the city, sorry. It's the entire county. And it's gotten so bad. It's gotten so bad that when people travel there for different reasons, they have to have background checks and all these different things taking place. And it's a bad situation. I can't get into detail about that, unfortunately. But if there's one city that does this, I can guarantee you, or one county, there are many more. I just particularly know about this one particular county. Things are bad. Things are really bad. And it's not that it's on the other side of our southern border. It's on this side of the southern border. They have encroached already upon our land. And it's, of course, all these people saying, oh, it's stolen land. It's not your land, Americans, anyway. How can you claim stolen land? Well, you know what? We fought hard and we worked out treaties and peace deals and all kinds of other things to obtain this land. We lost a lot of people as did both sides in the Spanish-American War. We had the Louisiana Purchase. There's a lot of different ways we came to be the country that we are. And I can guarantee you we're not giving it up at all. Not giving it up at all. And Mr. Pardo, Arizona is very dangerous in certain areas. I live in Arizona. My son is in Tucson, and you have to know where you are at all times. I had no idea that you lived in Arizona. And thank you for chiming in with that. Because I hear that from a lot of people that there are, again, areas of Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas that are extremely dangerous that the cartels control. And just like you said, people have to be very careful. If you drive through some of those areas, there are signs up all over the place. Don't stop on the side of the highway. Don't pick people up. Don't leave anything. If you see a backpack on the side of the highway, don't touch it. And it's crazy to think that here in America, we have to have signs like that. And we have to warn citizens in our own country, don't stop on the side of the highway. And, you hear these random reports of people driving down these highways and they see bodies hanging from billboards, or hanging from traffic, signs and so on. It's a pretty crazy situation. And I think we've had enough of it, haven't we? We need to take our country back. And that includes all the way up to the very edge, the tippy edge of our southern border. We need to take every square inch of America back. And that's exactly what we're doing. So we talked about this for a couple of seconds earlier. Donald Trump, of course, signing executive orders to ban the transgenders from the military. I don't know how you guys feel about that. If you think that's good, if you think that's bad. And let me remind, not necessarily you guys, I'm preaching to the choir here, that this was always the case in the past. In the past, remember, if you were gay, you could not be in the military. And a lot of people, of course, were and hid it. They had that policy. I remember that policy. I can't remember. Was that under Clinton or George Bush? I can't remember where it was like, don't say anything. I can't remember. Don't see or don't say. I can't remember what the name of the campaign was. But it was basically, if you're gay and you're in the military, don't talk about it. As long as you don't talk about it, you'll be fine. And, if you don't tell anyone, then you'll be protected, in the military, and you'll be able to keep your rank and your job. And of course, things have come a long way since then. Don't ask. Thank you, Sherry. Don't ask. Oh, I forgot to turn my phone off today. Sorry about that. Don't ask. Don't tell. Good morning, Scott. And so I would be very curious what you guys think about trans in the military. Should they be banned? Now, I am an absolute believer that if you are in the military and you're wanting to undergo transsexual surgery, you're wanting to change genders, you don't belong in the military. Not while you're going through this transition, I should say, because there's enough going on in the military that you need to worry about, not those types of personal situations. Take a break from the military, get your surgery done, do what you need to do, then re-enlist if that's what you have to do. But we have no place in the military for that. And let's see, Robert says, what about Calex? Is that right, Calex? California wants to secede from the USA and become its own country. Yes, that is funny. They want the way they spend and tax it would never last, or maybe they just want to try the foreign aid route, say from China, Japan, Korea. Yeah, we're going to talk about California here shortly. That's for sure, because there is some news for California also. Jay says, not banning technically, but many of the treatments, medications, and surgicals require multiple years of not being able to fulfill the readiness required to be a soldier. Jay, thank you for putting that in an eloquent way that I wasn't able to get out. That's exactly right. If you're a trans and you're going through that type of surgery, A, the government shouldn't have to pay for it. And B, yes, you're not able to fulfill your active duty. You're not able to go out and fight in a war or in combat, or even if you're just patrolling or whatever it is your duty is, you're not able to fulfill those duties if you're going through all these different trans medications and surgeries and so on. And it's unfortunate, but a lot of people have joined our military because guess what? Under the Biden administration, under Obama, they were receiving free surgery, free transgender surgery under the military. So that's why we ended up with a bunch of trans folks in our military, because we paid for their surgery. Now, Donald Trump ended that program during his 4 years. And then as soon as Biden came back in, the program went back into effect. And Scott says, I don't care if they can do the job. I don't want to pay for it. We shouldn't have to pay for it. We should not have to pay. And I still see trans surgery as being an elective surgery. You're going to survive without it. In other words, it's not emergency surgery. And no, the government should absolutely not pay for it. And of course, Donald Trump also ended diversity programs in the military, as he should. I am all 100% for, and I'm a woman, but I am obviously I'm 100% against all diversity DEI programs. 100%. You know what? When you interview people, when you want to hire people, make sure they are the people who do the best job. It doesn't matter if they're gay or straight or male or female or one of the other 20 sexual identities they've recently invented. It doesn't matter. If the person does the job the best, then that's the person who should get the job. And, we have to stop all this ridiculous nonsense. And there's a lot of people who are upset about ending these, diversity programs, but it is the right way to go. Absolutely the right way to go. Sandy, let's see, they're in their military because they wanted all the medical transition paid for. That's exactly right, Sandy. Hundreds of people joined our military so that we would, as a country, pay for their transition surgery, all the medications and the hormones and so on. Because if otherwise, they would either have to have private insurance that probably wouldn't pay for it. They'd have to pay for it out of pocket. So yes, we need to end it. I am 100% with Donald Trump on this decision. And let's see, Patrina, excellent points. Like, handle your private business 100%. We need real men and women on our front line. We do. It's a difficult job to be on the front lines, to be in combat, and to face the situations our military faced, between the training and their active duty. And the last thing we need is a bunch of people who are really distracted with their sexuality. It's like, how did sexuality become such a big part of our society? Seriously, whatever you do at your own home behind your closed doors, good for you. It doesn't matter if you're straight or whatever sexual identity you may have. You can call yourself a goldfish. I don't care. Whatever you want to be behind your own closed doors, be yourself. But out in the military, in the schools, in the government, you're going to have to repress that stuff. Keep it at home. It's crazy to me that every conversation about the government these days and about our military, about the schools, ends up being sexual content about people's sexual identity. It's so strange to me that a person's sexual identity has come so far to the forefront. It just makes no sense to me at all. And I'm quite honestly, I'm tired of it and I'm sick of it. So I am happy to see some of these policies go into effect. And Elizabeth, don't ask, don't tell was the name of the government. Yes. And I can't believe I forgot that because I've talked about it so many times. Sandy, just common sense. Allison, unfortunately, today's culture doesn't always reward merit, such as experience, accuracy, performance. It's been replaced with race sexuality and political orientation. Yeah, Donald Trump, he's been coming after affirmative action because, think about it. Do we need affirmative action in this day and time? Do you think that people are still held back from the job force based on their race or their sex? I don't feel that that's the case. Now, you're going to probably tell me I'm wrong. There's a lot of people who will say that I'm very wrong by saying that, but I really do feel that we have come to great equality. Great equality. We don't need affirmative action any longer. And I'm a woman. I own a security company. My mother started the security company. Guess what? She's a woman. And back in the day, and I'll tell you that we have come a long way as women. We are often CEOs, we're owners of companies, Black folks, Hispanic, Latinos at the very forefront. Here we've had Obama, a Black president, Kamala Harris, a Black vice president, Indian. What was she? Was she Jamaican, Indian? I believe not actually African American. So minorities are at the forefront. We have equality in this country. I no longer see a need for affirmative action. A company shouldn't be told you have to hire 10 white people and 10 people of color. It just shouldn't be. Every company should hire the people that do the best at the job. That's where we need to stand. And I'm glad that Donald Trump is following through with some of these policies. Pam says, doesn't the military have enough going on? Yes, they do have enough going on. And they're going to have more, in the very near future. We got a lot going on with our military. Robert says, problem is they're an open door influencer on social media. Robert, you got that one right, is that social media is full to the brim of people wanting to talk about their sexuality. And I don't know why people feel the need to talk about it. I just don't get it. It's happening here in my own community. I live in a really small community. I think there's like 6,000 people here. And on our community Facebook page, that's what people want to talk about is their sexuality. And they want to talk about having, drag shows and all this other crazy stuff in the middle of town. And I'm like, why? Why does this have to happen? Why do people have to talk about their sexuality? Why can't we talk about crime or, improving education? There's so many things going on, but we have all these social media influencers who all they want to talk about is their sexual identity. And I even talked to a guy who was in my local town on our local page, and I was very nice about it, but I'm like, why does every conversation have to go back towards LGBTQ? Why do we have to constantly have sexuality in the forefront? Yes, I understand that you're gay and you're proud to be gay, and that's perfectly fine. But at the same time, why does it have to be part of every single conversation? Everything. You could be talking about what's going on down at McDonald's, and they've got to start talking about LGBTQ. And I'm like, why are we talking about sexuality all the time? It's not good. It's not healthy. It's too much. It's way too much. But, that's just my thoughts and opinion on things, is that please, if you're proud about your sexuality, great. Do what you want behind your closed doors, but please leave the rest of us out of it. How about that? And some of the other things going on is, I'm sure you probably heard yesterday that Donald Trump decided to go against Gavin Newsom, against the mayor of Los Angeles. And he sent U.S. military into California. And guess what? He turned the water back on. He turned it on. He's like, this is ridiculous. The reason why we don't have water flowing from the Pacific Northwest down into the Los Angeles area is because they talk about environmental concerns. So Donald Trump said, enough of that. He sent the military in, and guess what? He turned the water back on. Now, I haven't heard the backlash yet. I'm sure Governor Gavin Newsom, I'm sure that mayor, whatever her name is, she's going to be coming out and talking about it. And I don't know if you guys saw the conference. I had it. I'm not going to play it. Charles says, take it up with Dr. Phil. That's so funny. I'm not going to get into the conference. I'm not going to play that for you guys, but it was kind of long. Most of you probably already saw it, where it was Donald Trump. It was an emergency meeting they had with the mayor of Los Angeles. Melania was there. All of the officials were there, and there was citizens there, and they were all talking, and they were, like, I want to go home. And the mayor's like, well, safety is most important, and it's going to be X amount of time before you can go home. And Trump spoke up, and he's like, listen, these people need to go home. He's like, that's it. I think it was like a week or 2 weeks, and they've got to get a permit and so on. Trump's like, no, these people need access to their home. And to me, as Americans, now this is me saying this, as Americans, you have the right to your property. Guess what? You pay the mortgage, you pay the taxes. That's your home and all your belongings. And you have the right to go back to your own home. I've never understood the situation in Lahaina or in North Carolina or other areas affected by Helene, or the situation in California in the LA area where they had the wildfires, that they're actually telling people you can't go back to your home. My gosh, can you imagine if your house burned down or there was some kind of an emergency and they blocked you from going to your home, that the police set up barricades and told you can't go back to your home, and you had identification, you proved that that's where you live? Man, I would be ready to fight. I would be ready to fight, because that's your property. No one should be able to keep you from your property. And I'm glad that Donald Trump spoke out. And the mayor, what's her name? I knew her name. I don't remember. And quite honestly, I don't care. So don't remind me. But the mayor kept speaking up over Donald Trump. I mean, that's the nerve she has, is to speak over her president. And finally, they cut her mic off and they took her mic away from her so that she couldn't keep interrupting Donald Trump. And, he held himself very well. And he said what was on his mind. And he said, you know what? We need to get these people back into their homes. We need to find a way where these people can start rebuilding immediately, instead of waiting 2 years for all these different permits and everything, all the red tape that they require there in the Los Angeles area. And it is really crazy. Elizabeth says, thank you, President Trump. There are a lot of good people living in California. They need our help. Their homes have been considered. Yes, they do absolutely need our help. They absolutely do. And it's a shame to me that it had to come to this, that Donald Trump had to go over Gavin Newsom, the governor, go over the mayor to turn the water back on. But, that goes to show he cares about these people. And a lot of people can say what they want. They can say, well, these people are millionaires, they have other homes and blah, blah. Not all of them did. And even if they did, a lot of these people, millionaires or not, these were the homes they lived in for many years. They had a lot of memories there, all of their belongings there, very personal to them. And I do have empathy for these people who lost their homes, regardless of their status. And they, just like us, they want to go home. They want to get back to their home. They want to see what they can recover from their belongings. And I don't blame them at all. And now, of course, I don't know what Donald Trump's going to do about this, but it was announced that even after this conference with Donald Trump, even after he told the mayor and the governor that these people need to be able to access their home immediately, they are still being required to get something called an orange permit before they can enter their subdivision, before they can get back to their home. They have to go and apply for a permit. So you could be living in your vehicle, okay? You have no idea if your home is there or not. Maybe your home didn't burn down. You don't know. And maybe it did, you just don't know. But before you can even find out, before you can go back to your home, you have to go and apply for a permit. And then that permit you can give to the authorities who are blocking the roadway. And when you have your permit, you can go back to your home. I mean, it's like, is this America or is it not America? Is it America or is it not America? And Mary, I see you say her name, but I'm not saying it. I can't stand that woman. I was trying to have empathy for her in the beginning, the mayor of Los Angeles. When she came back, remember, from Ghana, and they had that press conference and the reporter was asking her questions, and, she just was dumbfounded, literally. She said nothing. It's like she couldn't even get a word out. She just said nothing. And I remember thinking, maybe she's just really upset because, this is her community and these people in her community lost their homes. No, I think she's just an idiot, is what I think. I take back any empathy I had for her. She's just an idiot. And it is what it is. And let's see, Jay says, that's what happens when little people get a little power. You got that right. You couldn't pay me to live in California. It's a beautiful state. You could not pay me to live there. Nope. And regardless of its beauty, I don't want to live there. Pam says they want everyone to be safe now. What a joke. Yeah, exactly. They should have thought about that safety before the fires. These fires could have been prevented. They could have been prevented. And Dottie, just like Lahaina, that's exactly right. And Dottie says toxic waste was her push to delay. They should have had the water ready. They should have had the water in the reservoir. That reservoir set empty for over a year. all because of environmental concerns. I am so sick of hearing about global warming and environmental concerns and all of this about some little fish they worried was going to be extinct. And I get the worry. Take some of those fish, breed them somewhere. Let the people have the water. I am so tired of government overreach, and that's exactly what this is. To think that you have to have a permit, man, I would probably be in prison right now if something happened in my community and they told me that I couldn't go back to my home. Let's say if the New Madrid earthquake finally hit, which, by the way, I hear we're close to that. Story for another day. But if that happened, and my neighborhood, let's say, was on fire because of the earthquake or whatever the situation might be, and they said, well, you can't go back to your house. I'm sorry. You're going to have to find somewhere else to go. Maybe you can live in your car, go find a hotel, go find relatives wherever you can, because you can't come home. And before you come home, you're going to have to go and file for a permit. And then when they give you and issue you the permit, then guess what? Come back and we'll let you through. I am sorry, as much as I love law enforcement, we would fight that day. I would be in prison. No one's going to tell me I can't come back to my home. This is America. You are free to come to your home. It's really unbelievable to me. Mr. Parnell, American land of the free, home of those who can pay. That's also right. Tara says, you're right. She's a dumb Marxist and her actions are indefensible. You got that right. Mary says, it's funny. Sometimes you remember the names of the worst and best people. I sometimes, and I really didn't remember her name. I do now since you reminded me, but I'm not saying it. Jay says there's a reason why California is the leading state year after year for people moving out of the state. Yeah, but you know what? The state of California is getting ready to change. I mean, it's going to change because, a very good portion of the population in California is there illegally. What's going to happen as these deportations and self-deportations continue to some of these states like California, Arizona, New Mexico, and so on. It'll be very interesting to see how the demographics change, how the landscape changes, how it affects the economy in those areas. And we'll talk more about that, in the coming days, about the economy and how that's going to change, because some other things I want to talk about today, we did touch base on that a little bit yesterday, but we're going to be keeping an eye on how the economy changes over these deportations. And trust me, it will. It absolutely will. And speaking of that, I guess you guys heard about China's new DeepSeek. They're an AI company called DeepSeek. Speaking of the economy, we suffered the single loss ever in the stock market yesterday. I think it was $1 trillion. And what we are told, and we've talked on this show a lot about AI, and that is exactly why I know a lot of you guys are against Stargate. I know a lot of you guys are against some of these other AI type programs that Donald Trump wants to institute. But I'll tell you what, like I said last week, the week before, and probably the week before that, we are behind the game when it comes to AI. We are behind the game. I've talked to you guys before and other people in my life before about how our AI is really not that good. And I know if you go to Chat GPT, and I use Chat GPT sometimes to help me create logos and different things like that. It's pretty dumb sometimes. I will everything, if you ask it to do anything patriotic or American, all it can think of is flags, eagles, and the Statue of Liberty. That's pretty much it. That's its inventory for patriotic. And so it's kind of funny. And of course, China comes up with DeepSeek, which is supposed to be far superior to any AI program we have in the United States. And it just sank the stock market yesterday, absolutely sank it. And I know there was $1 trillion lost in the tech sector. NVIDIA took the hardest hit. They were down by 12%. I think it came out to be about $589 billion they lost yesterday, NVIDIA, which is crazy because NVIDIA has been at the top of their game, if you know. And we absolutely have to come up with a way to beat this DeepSeek. We have to, not only for reasons of just the typical AI you would use maybe in everyday, workplace or things you do in your personal life every day. Some of you probably don't use AI at all. But I'll tell you what, when it comes to the government and when it comes to defense, we better be on top of our game. And I can guarantee you, this is at the forefront of the minds of people like Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, I can guarantee you they are thinking about AI, because if we don't come up with a better plan for AI, if we don't improve upon what we have, we're going to lose the game, and a very serious game, and a lot to lose over that. And let's see, Charles says, I use Chat GPT to summarize discussions and generate meeting minutes. AI is a powerful tool. It is. And just think if we had DeepSeek. Now, of course, you're going to hear over the coming days that there's a lot of people who say, well, China stole DeepSeek from the United States. That was really our AI technology. Now, whether that's true or we're trying to claim something that really isn't ours, we'll soon find out. But keep an eye out for a DeepSeek, because it's a really big deal. And it will DeepSeek, and let's say what Russia has. I don't know what the name of Russia's AI program is, but it's far superior to anything that we have. It will revolutionize the battlefield. AI is being taken into the front lines, and that's something to think about. I posted on my Facebook page earlier, speaking of, the front lines, it was kind of a little battle between one of China's AI robot dogs and an AI drone. It was pretty wild. And Jay says, China steals pretty much everything, and if they stole it, it doesn't matter. It's theirs now. It's not ours. And now we have to combat that. And, Donald Trump spoke out yesterday. He was talking about the Iron Dome. I guess you're familiar with that. You probably saw his speech where he was talking about the Iron Dome. And, it's something, again, we've talked about on the show, but we have to, and AI, of course, plays a role into the Iron Dome, as does Stargate. So these are programs, as iffy as people may be about them, that we really need to support. And Stargate, I know people keep talking about these cancer mRNA vaccines. Stargate is about data centers. It's going to be about AI. It's going to be about a lot of different things. And I think any type of AI cancer vaccine should be put on the back burner. That is not at the forefront of these AI discussions. We're talking about AI military, AI Iron Dome. We have to protect our country. That is number one, is protecting the American people. Because think about it, the phase one, let's get all the people out who don't belong here. All the bad guys, let's get them out. Then let's protect our country so they don't get back in. And we're going to be facing, exponential threats in the coming years. We need an Iron Dome system. We need it. And, I have a video with Donald Trump talking about the Iron Dome. Let's see here. I don't know which one it is. And I also have a video of him talking about abolishing the IRS. So we're going to talk about that next, as well as talking about abolishing income tax. Let's see here. I know my videos aren't doing great today, but we'll see what we can pull up eventually. I don't know why my buttons aren't working. I need to get to the bottom of that. Well, maybe we won't watch the video. I don't know why these things aren't
And in
working.
a little while, I'll be signing 4 new executive orders. First is that I'm directing our new Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who's going to be great, by the way. Thank you for the support. Thank you very much for the support. You really did support him greatly. I think he's going to be fantastic. I know him very well. I think he's going to be fantastic. He's what we need to immediately begin the construction of a state-of-the-art Iron Dome missile defense shield, which will be able to protect Americans. We protect other countries, but we don't protect ourselves. And when Ronald Reagan wanted to do it many years ago, luckily we didn't. We didn't have the technology then. It was a concept, but we didn't. And now we have phenomenal technology. You see that with Israel, where out of 319 rockets, they knocked down just about every one of them. So I think the United States is entitled to that, and everything will be made right here in the USA, 100.
Okay, and here is Trump, if I can pull the video up, talking
It's time
about
for the United States to return to the system that made us richer and more powerful than ever before. Do you know the United States in 1870 to 1913, all tariffs, and that was the richest period in the history of the United States, relatively speaking. In other words, relatively. And they set up the Great Tariff Commission of 1887, and this commission had one function: what to do with all the money that we took in. It was so enormous that they had no idea. It was a blue ribbon committee. It was set up 1887, and what to do with all of the money that we had. And again, Teddy Roosevelt was a beneficiary, because when McKinley was killed, he took over this vast sum of money, and he did all of those national parks and all of the other things. And I'm not knocking him, but he was given a vast amount of money, and that was all made through tariffs. We had no income tax. The income tax came in 1913. As I said in my speech last week, instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be tariffing and taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens. Does that make sense, right?
So, sorry, I'm going to try to pull myself back up. I'm trying and pressing my buttons, but not a lot's going on. Oh, there we go. And Elizabeth, the supersonic plane test today is exciting. I believe that's taking place in California, and it is exciting. There's so much going on. But you heard Donald Trump talk about the Iron Dome. You'd heard him talk about the abolishing the IRS, which is crazy because we just talked about that yesterday. And I do think that it's something along those lines is going to happen where he's going to give it back to the states. We'll see how that works. But income tax, we talked a lot yesterday about abolishing federal tax because guess what? Again, federal taxation is unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional. Why they've gotten away with it this long, I will never know. Probably because we, the people, have not risen up and done something about it. But I think we're all getting to the point where we were about ready to, weren't we? And so therefore, I think Donald Trump has perfect timing talking about abolishing the IRS, going back to a tariff type system, backing the currency in gold. He didn't talk about it here, but that is something that is on the table, is backing the U.S. currency in gold. And that's something that absolutely has to happen. It has to happen. And you're going to hear a lot more about it again in the coming days, weeks, months, as these plans are seen to fruition. In the meantime, our new Treasury Secretary, and Trump did a great job, a great job picking these folks, didn't he? Scott Bessent. Now, I don't have the faintest clue who Scott Bessent is, never even heard of him until now, is the Treasury Secretary. This is what his statement was. He said, as Treasury Secretary, I'm committed to eliminating income taxes, replacing them with a fair consumption tax, and adopting a gold-backed currency. We'll erase debt, restore financial privacy, and unlock new technologies for a prosperous future. The golden age starts now. Now, isn't that a fantastic? I just got chills. I mean, I literally just got chills reading that from our Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. Can you imagine how life is going to change for all of us, if they abolish the IRS, if they get rid of federal taxation, if they get rid of income taxes? It's a new world. I mean, it really is. You're going to see so much of your money. I've said so many times in the past that, I read a study a couple of years ago where it said 73 cents of every dollar that you earn is spent in taxes. 73 cents of every dollar that you earn, you're not seeing, because that money is going back to paying different types of taxes. So now think of it under these two programs, eliminating federal tax, eliminating income tax. If these things happen, and I think they will, then if this happens, think how much more money you're going to see. You're actually going to feel the money you work for. If most people, you go to work every day, you might be working your 40 hours a week, some of us 60 to 100 hours a week. And, and very little of that money comes back to you. And then what money does come back, you go out and you pay your groceries and your grocery tax, you buy gasoline and you pay gas tax, and they just tax the heck out of us. And I really do hope, and Jay says it will be replaced in other taxes. Yes, but maybe, Jay, I'm trying to be very optimistic about this. I'm trying to, of course, they're going to find ways to tax us. There's no question about it. We have to pay some taxes. However, just think, if we go from 73 cents of every dollar going towards taxes to, let's say, we're only paying 25 cents of every dollar that's going towards taxes. You know what? I'll take it. I think that will be life-changing to a lot of people, and I will take it. Now, these are programs we'll have to monitor. We'll have to keep an eye on them. If for some reason we find that we're not paying federal tax, we're not paying income tax, however, we're still losing, 73 cents or more of every dollar, then we got to go back to the drawing board. Because right now, at the state things are on, it's ridiculous. And I was to the point where I felt like we needed a revolution. And you guys have heard me talk about that probably many times, to the point where I was worried I was going to get a knock on my door talking about, a revolution over the past few years. And I think we were leading up to a point where if Donald Trump wasn't elected, I think that's the direction we were going to have to go. Now we got a reprieve here in that we do have 4 years, the golden age to look forward to. Let's see, 23% tax is what I read was the plan. Let's hope it's a little bit lower than that, a little bit lower than 23%, and federal taxes or consumption tax. We'll see how it all works out. And Sandy, I'm with you. Stop the theft. And that's exactly what it is. And here's the thing. If we paid tax dollars out and our tax dollars went to making education better, paying teachers more, paying law enforcement more, giving law enforcement better benefits, money going to other first responders, money going to the defense of our country, or to our military members, who many are living in poverty, quite honestly. If our tax money went to saving the children, providing school lunches, providing healthcare for people, I would be all for that, because those things make us a stronger country. But when you're going to say you're going to take $73, from every dollar, or 73 cents from every dollar I earn, and you're going to give it to Ukraine, or, some of these other ridiculous things we've spent money on, I am not okay with that. I am absolutely not okay with that. And by the way, I'm just going to remind you guys that Elon Musk is trying to formulate a plan that any time, and it's so funny because we've talked about this for years, that we all wish that two things: that we knew where our tax money was going, that we had some type of a receipt where we could look and say, okay, I paid X number of dollars in taxes this month. I want to be able to log on somewhere. I want something mailed to me that says, okay, here's where all your tax dollars went. Or when a new bill is created, we want to be able to go on and say, okay, let's read all 1,500 pages, if you want to read them, before Congress signs off on a bill. Well, Elon Musk is working on a program like that. We've talked about it briefly before. And they are creating a website where you can go online and you can see where all of your tax dollars are being spent. And you can see and read these bills before they pass through Congress. So those are very important to me. I would hope they're important to you too, because I want to know where my tax dollars are going. I don't care if it's a book the size of my house. I want to see every single line where our tax dollars are going. And I feel so thankful that these things are going to happen, and that we're going to finally be able to see where our money is going. Because guess what? If you can see where the money is going, that's going to stop a lot of the money laundering and other things that happen. It's going to stop a lot of the funding of these ridiculous CIA programs, that we are funding. It's us. We're the people who are paying for terror organizations. We're the ones funding ISIS and funding Al Qaeda and all these other groups. And it's insane. Jeremiah, I know you would know, so thank you for chiming in. Consumption tax is hardest on low-income citizens like our military families. And, Jeremiah, I have to tell you that I don't know the first thing about consumption tax. I don't know. And that's something I'm going to have to research, because I don't understand how consumption tax works. And I think we're all going to be getting some lessons on these different things. And I don't want to do anything that hurts the people who need the money the most. And that is the people in our country who are living in poverty. So I hope that if consumption tax hurts these people the most, that there are ways around it, to ways that we can alleviate that burden from these people. And I do hope that we have a better living wage for people as well. I don't think anyone in our country right now should be earning, $12, $13 an hour. You can't survive on that. I know people making $25, $35 an hour who can't even survive on that. How are you going to survive on minimum wage? So those are all some things that we're going to have to look at and talk about. And Kevin Joseph, no more NGOs. You got that right. And Jeremiah says, I like the idea, but we have to be careful. Jeremiah, I'm going to look into that, because I do need to do a lot of research. I don't understand consumption tax. I told you guys yesterday, I don't really understand how a tariff system works. So I'm going to do some research on that. And if you guys know, please fill me in, because I don't know. So in order for us to talk about it more in the future, I'm going to definitely have to do some research on a tariff system, on consumption tax, and that type of thing, because I know very little to nothing about those types of taxes. So we'll definitely be diving into that. We'll learn together. And Jay says, can't afford fast food at the current minimum wage either. The minimum wage is, I used to not be in support of raising the minimum wage to $15. There was a time I didn't support that. And now all of a sudden I'm like, gosh, now that things have changed and gas prices are screwed through the roof, food prices through the roof, of course, because of avian flu, good luck finding some eggs this Easter. And things are just crazy and people need to be able to survive. We are a stronger country when people earn a good living wage and they can provide for their families. Crime goes down in some areas, and it's a subject for another day, but something we definitely have to talk about. And Charles says consumption tax means the more you spend, the more you pay. Wealthy people spend more and would not be able to dodge the tax behind accounting tricks. Robert says the market should set the wages. There's no reason why the prices are as high as they are right now. We're at a place right now of overinflation. Our dollar is valued so low. Thankfully, it's going up, since the election. But we're in a really tough spot right now, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. I know people expect Donald Trump to have all the answers. What are we, 8 days in now? He's supposed to have all the answers, but no. It's going to take some time. I do think he has the answers, but it is going to take some time. And I know we don't have a whole lot of time left. So something I wanted to jump into today, I know you guys are probably reading a lot about the JFK files that were released. Now, they haven't, at least if you've seen more than I have, please fill me in. But I've only seen a little bit here and there. I've not seen anything overwhelming yet. And I'm still hearing reports that, yes, certain files were deleted, or I'm not deleted, sorry, that certain files were released, but a lot of the information was redacted. Well, something that did come out of some of these files that I've been looking at is there's two things. I got a video clip. I'm gonna play the video clip here in a minute, but also, have you heard about Operation Northwoods? And I'm sure you have, Robert. I am positive you have. And Operation Northwoods is pretty wild. And it doesn't surprise me at all. But what it does do, it solidifies and validates the fact that our government does actually harm Americans for what they consider the greater good of the country. And we as Americans, I think we all know, we are just pawns, aren't we? We're collateral damage. I think we all feel like collateral damage. We're just simply a social security number that pays taxes into the government. And Operation Northwoods, I've never heard of it. I didn't even know it existed. And it was a CIA plan operation in 1962, which JFK, by the way, refused to partake in. And because he refused, some people think that's part of the reason why he was assassinated. Now, I don't know if that's true or if it's not true, but I did read a lot of the documents from this Operation Northwoods. And, there was a time in my life when people would talk about false flag operations and how, and it was part of, I think, my awakening to becoming a conservative. I was never a liberal, but I did watch CNN all the time. I believed everything the government told us. I believed that our government served a good purpose and they did everything for us as Americans, that they would never harm us. They only had our best interest at heart. And then I really woke up and everything changed a lot. Alan says Mongoose, March 5th, 1962, actually talks about using drones in Cuba. Here's some highlights from Operation Northwoods. And I've got a lot of different documents on this. I'm just going to go over the main points of this operation because it's pretty crazy when you think about it. So what they were trying to implement under Operation Northwoods is they were going to bomb or somehow explode an American military ship in Guantanamo. And they were going to arrange for terror attacks in Miami and other cities around Florida. So what our government was wanting to do is, of course, this was during the big battle with Cuba, during that era of time in 1962. And they wanted to attack Cuban refugees in our country, and they wanted to blame it on Cuba. And so they were going to bomb an American military ship in Guantanamo and say that it was Cuban operatives who did this, or the Cuban government. And they were going to plant bombs in public spaces all around Miami and different areas of Florida and New York. And in doing so, they were going to say that, again, that it was the Cuban government that was planting these bombs. They were going to think about this one really hard. They were going to down a civilian aircraft, and they were going to blame that on Cuba. Of course, they were going to blame it on Cuba. They were going to, have all of this media coverage surrounding these incidents and make sure that the American public knew that Cuba was behind all of these attacks. And, they were going to attack a U.S. military base near Cuba. And doing so, they were going to blame it on the country of Cuba. And of course, these are all false flag operations. And none of this is any surprise to me. I doubt it's any surprise to you. There was a time when I would have never believed that a false flag operation, I swear to you, there was a time when people would talk to me about false flag operations. Now, this was many, many years ago. And I would say, oh, that's crazy. Our government would never do that to us. They wouldn't harm American citizens for any objective, and then I learned, and now, of course, I know the truth. And this just goes to show these are documents that were released as part of the JFK files talking about Operation Northwoods, clearly showing in 1962, the CIA wanted to harm Americans. Their objective was to harm Americans. They were going to down, an airliner full of Americans to blame it on the Cuban government. Doesn't that remind you of an awful lot of things that have happened in this country? And of course, their objective is they wanted the American people. It was a big propaganda campaign. That's all it was. It was a propaganda campaign. And they wanted Americans to feel empathy. And they wanted us to be angry with Cuba so that we would agree to going to war against Cuba. Now, we could sit here and talk about so many different times this has happened since then. The terror attacks in our country, different types of shootings in our country, different types of bombings in our country that we've blamed on other countries. Obviously, 9/11 being the largest one, that's probably the forefront of everybody's mind. And then you start thinking, gosh, did 9/11 happen the way they told us it happens? There's a lot of people out there who will tell you that they were on the ground that day in New York City. And while they heard an explosion and they saw a big poof of smoke, they never saw an airplane fly into the World Trade Center. Now, whether that's true, whether it's not true, I wasn't there. I don't know. I know people who were in the building. And of course, those people in the building, the only thing they knew was an explosion took place. They didn't really know why. And now, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole with whether or not an airplane really did, fly into the World Trade Center. I was watching a video on it the other day, and a guy kept saying, well, did you see an airplane fly into the World Trade Center? And the guy's like, yes, I did. He goes, well, where did you see it? He's like, on TV. He's like, well, you were in New York. Did you see it with your own eyes? No, I just saw a poof of cloud. But when I watched the replay, when I watched it on TV, it was live TV on my phone or computer, whatever it was the guy had at the time. He's like, I saw it, but not with his eyes. He only saw it on television. So did it happen? Did it not happen? I'm not going to get into that today. But what I will say is this just goes to show more validation that our government does, in fact, perpetuate crimes against Americans in what they consider the better good of the country. And, of course, they're wrong and these things shouldn't happen, but they do happen and they're going to continue to happen. And, JFK said, no, I'm not going to be part of this operation. I'm not going to harm the American people. And of course, he was assassinated not long after. What do those things correlate? I don't know. Robert says it's the government within the government that is the problem, the leadership. You got that right. Joe Fry, the guitar guy, says, look into Project Mockingbird. Yes. And let's see here. It would be impossible for a plane to penetrate through the steel beam structure. I would think so, too. I would think that as soon as an airplane hit a steel structure in the way that it did, that it would just break the wings off and disintegrate. And, of course, there's jet fuel. I don't know. I don't know the workings of everything and how that would look like or what it would be like. It doesn't seem like it could be possible, more so with the Pentagon. The Pentagon, the walls there, they're about 12 feet thick of concrete. I know somebody who was working in the Pentagon on the day of the attack. And what he explained to me, he worked directly on the J8 team in the Pentagon for the Joint Chief of Staff. And he was a very high up in his position. And he explained to me that morning he was there, he was working out on the treadmill on the opposite side of where the alleged plane hit the Pentagon. And he said that in where he was, running on this treadmill, he said that everything the lights kind of flickered. They didn't go off, they flickered. And he thought, well, what is going on? Why did the lights flicker? Because he said that never happened before. And then, of course, they got the alert, the alarms went off, and, he grabbed his things and had to, run and meet his team. And he told me about a lot of the decisions, that they had to make that day. And I know people don't like for me to say this, but I am 100% sure, at least in my own mind, that we did shoot down Flight 93. And I hate to say that because I know a lot of people think, oh, the heroes did it. They gained control of the airplane and dived it down and saved Americans. But the fact is this person that I know that's on the J-18 told me that he was there when they made the decision, that they had no choice. They knew that airplane was heading towards the White House. They had to take out Flight 93. They had no choice over the Pennsylvania mountains but to shoot it down. And of course, they wanted to upplay the narrative that the passengers saved the plane because it would reach the hearts of Americans, and they would support more going to war against, Iraq and Afghanistan. And so there's a lot that went into it, but I will forever understand that false flag operations are real. We are nothing but collateral damage. And think about that moving forward. Think about it moving forward. How will we be used in the future? Now, under Donald Trump, I don't think Donald Trump is going to use Americans as collateral damage. I really don't. But, Donald Trump has 4 years. What's going to happen after those 4 years? Hopefully the Democrat regime has lost their power. We're not going to have to worry about that after 4 years. But I don't know. Robert says this guy is too slick. Who's behind the Mike Johnson mask? You're right, Robert. But I don't know. I actually really like Mike Johnson. I didn't think I would, but I do. And so is there somebody controlling him? I don't know. But I like what I see, and I think we're not used to that. So it feels like somebody's setting us up, of course. And Joe says, very controlled. And, Robert says, with thermite, paint, accelerants, and holograms. There's a lot of people who believe that, Robert, about the holograms and so on. I don't know personally what to believe. But as these JFK files are released, it's pretty interesting. Before we go, I'm going to try my hardest to play this video for you. Now, I don't know where this video came from. I found it on Telegram. I am told that it was part of the declassified files that were released. And there's an image here, but this is actually just an audio file. And I don't know. There's no way I have of confirming that it actually did come from the declassified files. I don't know. So I'm going to tell you that going into this, I do not know. I have no way to confirm this. I have not seen the files, and I keep hearing that they've not yet been released. They've been declassified, but not released. But I did find this on Telegram, and I found it to be interesting. So you can listen. It's about a minute long, and think what you want. If I can play it. I'm trying. I'm going to have to work on my computer today.
Well, Saul, it's been a pretty touch and go situation. Linda and I have had quite a few unpleasant words here lately over the deal with that he hired Mike Wallace to assassinate the president. It's been hectic in every way, but we've lived through it this far. I guess we'll continue to do so. Lyndon should have never issued that order to Mike. But we've had our differences, and I'm a true blue to Lyndon, as I've always been, and tried to carry out every order that he's ever given me. But this is one I'll probably never be able to forget. In the times that we've had in Texas, and the embarrassment that Lyndon had gotten from Kennedy, I guess there wasn't anything else to do but what he did.
Well, Lyndon could have really helped me if he would.
Well, Lyndon's the kind of person that doesn't want to help anyone. He's all for Lyndon, and that's the way it's pretty much always been.
Well, they had me backed up on that Henry Marshall.
So is it true? Is it not true? Did Lyndon B. Johnson arrange for the assassination of John Kennedy? Sorry, I'm trying to bring myself back here. We'll see what happens. It might take me a couple seconds, but it will eventually work if I keep pressing my button. There we go. Is it true? Again, I cannot confirm that this audio clip came from the declassified JFK files, but if it did, I think that's pretty darn powerful. I mean, you hear someone specifically say that Lyndon B. Johnson gave the order to assassinate John Kennedy. I wouldn't be surprised by that. A lot of people have talked about it, but it does make you wonder. Robert says, I saw a grainy video over 30 years ago that showed the driver using his mirror first shot Connolly, then Kennedy. Robert, I have that video. I just watched it the other day, and it's been colorized. I don't know if the one you saw was colorized, but I just watched that video. And, that's a tough one. I'm going to try to find that. I just watched it the other day, and maybe I can play that tomorrow. But there is a video where you see the driver of the car turn, and he does have a gun in his hand, and he points it back, towards Kennedy. However, I don't see the gun fire. You don't see anything that looks like a flash or anything. And maybe there's reasons for that. I don't know. But I still think that what happened, at least on the video that I saw, it seemed like he was reacting. He was very quick to react, but I didn't feel like it was him that fired the shot. But I could be wrong. But I have watched that video, and you just have to look at it and think of it however you want to think of it. And I don't know. And Robert says Johnson with Daddy Bush. It really does make you wonder what exactly happened. I think all of us, if you're listening to this show, you probably do think that JFK was assassinated, that it was a CIA operation. Same with MLK. There's a lot of, I'll talk about that tomorrow, but MLK, I've read some of those documents also, what documents have been made available. And the consensus is, at least what they're saying anyway. And now I don't know if this is true. Again, there's no way I can confirm that these documents that I've read are actually part of the classified files that were, recently declassified. And I've got a lot of files too that have been released from the JFK, and I can post those on social media later. I was going to read over them, but I think talking about it's a little bit easier than reading the actual documents. And with MLK, they were talking about how he was really a paid actor. He was not really the civil rights activist that we all thought he was, that he was a paid actor, and that he was having affairs with several different women, one of them being Joan Baez, which I thought was pretty wild because we just worked on the film, about Bob Dylan. And so it was pretty interesting. I feel like after working on that film and, seeing it so many times, the one with Timothy Chalamet and Joan Baez, I didn't know anything about Joan Baez or, the situation prior to. But of course, she was also a big advocate and would attend a lot of these different rallies with MLK. So I can't say that's completely out of the question that didn't happen. But it was pretty interesting. Joe says it was a special gun. It could have been. And let's see here. Robert says it definitely had a gunshot flash. Well, then I may have seen a different video than you did. I'm going to show the video tomorrow of the video that I have, and you guys can take a look at that and see what you see, because obviously you might see something I don't see. And maybe it's not the same video, but I can clearly see the driver turn with what looks like a gun in his hand. So we'll play that tomorrow. But there's a lot going on with these declassified files. But what I want to know, and as files continue to be released about MLK, JFK, RFK, which, by the way, the Kennedy family, let's say, is it Carolyn's son, is fighting against what the media is going to say about the files, what the people are saying about these files. He claims that John Kennedy was assassinated, again, not by the CIA, but just some crazy lunatic. And he doesn't even want to hear about any other assumptions that the CIA played a role in it. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And how he would know that, I don't know, because he probably hasn't seen these files either. And Charles says, LBJ is a turncoat, if this is true. That would make it a coup also. I agree, Charles. I personally think it is true. I absolutely do think it's true. I think Johnson did, in fact, create this operation with the CIA to assassinate JFK. And was it over Operation Northwoods? I don't know. It certainly could have been. Maybe he wasn't a player in the game. He didn't want to do what the government wanted him to do, so therefore they didn't see a need to keep him around. There's a lot to be talked about when it comes to all of these cases. But what I don't see, and what I would like to see, I want to see the Epstein client list. That's something yet that has not been released. I think it should be on the very forefront of Donald Trump's agenda. I want to see that list. Yes, we already have a good idea who's on there, but I want to know who is on the Epstein client list, and I want to know right now. And I want to know who's on the Diddy list, and I want to know right now. And these are things I don't feel like we should wait for or have to wait for. I think that the people need to reach out and do your best to get Donald Trump to authorize releasing that list. Now, is there a reason why he's not? I haven't even heard it being discussed. But I think that's something that needs to happen immediately. We, the American people, we want to know who is on that list. Will it blow our government apart? Possibly. You know, maybe the entertainment industry, possibly. I don't know. But we need to know, and we have the right to know. And I want to know. So I hope that it's discussed soon. We haven't heard what the drones are about either. Remember, that was another conversation promised to us. And I'm not being hard on Donald Trump. I know he's got a lot on his agenda right now, but these are some of the things that I want to know about. You know, in as far as the drones go, you know, also there's a nuclear training taking place in New York. It's in Albany, Schenectady, and Saratoga counties in New York, where they're conducting nuclear bombing type emergency responses, and they're telling citizens in those areas, you know, don't be alarmed. This is just a training session in the event that New York City would be bombed, you know, with a nuclear weapon. I thought that was kind of interesting on the heel of all the drones that were being seen in those general areas. And again, we have no answer on the drones. I haven't seen as many reports lately about drones. People are still seeing the orbs. They're still seeing a lot of unidentified type objects in the air more than ever, quite honestly, but we're just not hearing about it as much. Jay says, I'm sure if it's people, we wouldn't be surprised who's on it. If Trump was on it, it would have been out already. I don't expect Donald Trump to be on the Epstein Island list. He's definitely not going to be on the Diddy list. If Donald Trump has not released these lists yet, it is because he's either using them to negotiate something, or he is, you know, he's just too busy with everything else. I absolutely do not think Donald Trump is on the Epstein list. I absolutely do not believe that. And we'll see, of course, and I'm sure he'll prove that to us. I don't believe that's true. And Joe Fry, in the middle of swearing in, Johnson winked at someone. Mission accomplished. I think you're right. And Robert said, MLK was set up by Jesse Jackson. The shooter was instructed to hit the target wearing the tie. I also would not be surprised by any of these things. Would not be surprised by any of these things. And we're going to learn more as more of these files are released to the public. I'm finding them on Telegram. I haven't really found them anywhere else. And people just kind of release them here and there, and no one really has commented much on them. I have a few of those documents. I'll share them on social media today after the show if you want to see those. You know, there's really nothing to gain from them outside of what we've talked about, but there's some information there. We'll take a look at it. But either way, that's it for me today. Lots more to talk about. That I'm way over my time as usual. And there's a lot more to talk about the coming days. Colonel Joe Adams joining us tomorrow morning. I've got hiccups. So sorry. I haven't had hiccups in years, but here we go. Thank you again for joining us today. If you like the show, please share it. And make sure you spread the truth faster than they spread the lies. I will look forward to seeing you guys all tomorrow. Again, so much more to talk about. Every day there's so much to talk about because we continue to see our country progress in such a fantastic way that how can you not be happy? How can you not see all this as good news? And I know there's a lot of crazy stuff going on too, but we've got to go through the crazy to get to the good. So thank you again. I do hope you all have, thank you, Mr. Parnell added a file, archive.gov for the files. Thank you for that. I'm going to go on there and look, because I haven't seen anything. Thank you, Stacy, for joining us this morning. And we will see you all tomorrow. Have a good day. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap.